welcome. This is the Market Wrap. I am Agam Vakil. Well, we have seen more strength on the benchmark indices, and that augurs well. And with that, we've had 2 good days of trade with advances coming in for as far as the benchmark indices are concerned on Monday and Tuesday. Today, we had a gain of around 87 points, and this was led largely by Eicher Motors, which was the top gainer on the index. A good amount of longs coming in through as well, and with help from the likes of Vedanta or ONGC and Hero MotoCorp. Look at the auto sector, in fact. Hero MotoCorp, Maruti Suzuki and M&M all advancing with, well, good volumes too, which is why we're looking at that strength coming on as far as the indices are concerned. And on the losing end, we don't have too much except for perhaps something like an Infosys, which has a reasonable amount of weight on the index. That was down another 2%, and Bharti Airtel, of course, the other, which is down 2.8%. In the broader markets too, if you take a look at the advanced decline ratio, not unlike what we saw yesterday. And we have some gains coming up, propping their heads up. In India, tourism development once again advancing. Bandhan Bank is back about the mark of 600 now, 10%. We have gains in Adani Transmission. In fact, a lot of Adani Group stocks have been buzzing off late towards the positive side. Federal Mogul, GSW Energy, Tech Solutions, all advancing. On the losing end, Viatech Vabag is something that we're going to address. Of course, Bajaj Consumer Care did fall as much as 11.5%, largely on account of a bulk deal that happened in the last hour of trade. Indiabulls Ventures, Reliance Capital, KRBL, all declining. But on the whole, the momentum is towards the gainers, and that's how you can define today's day of trade. But on that note, let me get in our market editor Neeraj Shah for his thoughts on the markets. Neeraj, what have you made of the gains today?
It must be a trader's nightmare, isn't it, Agam? To see Donald Trump coming out with a tweet and saying that X has happened, and China coming in saying that, oh no, we need something else, and then China coming in saying that, okay, maybe he's right. So just imagine what's happening to a trader's point. But aside of that, I mean, it's difficult to preempt what will happen on a daily basis, as you and I both know. But thankfully, the results, at least that ones that came out yesterday, well, Ford, if ACC and Wipro don't disappoint too much, then we might just exorcise the small issues that we've had with a couple of other names in the past. So that is one thing to watch, but individual names remain in focus. Frankly, nothing more to add, but for the fact that watch out for what China and US are saying in the near term. I think that's the only top draw. The only respite, Agam, is that crude has fallen, and it continues to fall down, and that should only augur well for India.
And a surprising up move in the auto sector. So
but we spoke around, Agam, to a few people as well. Almost everybody who didn't know anything said it's a dead cat bounce, or maybe it's a reversal from the lows. We don't know if there's some potential government action behind this, but let's wait and watch. This could die tomorrow.
Absolutely. Fair enough, Neeraj. Thanks for that perspective there. So that's as far as some of your stocks are concerned. But on that note, let's talk about one mid-cap stock towards the losing end. We have the Viatech Vabag, which declined as much as 18% in today's day of trade. Now we have Forum Bhatt, who's joining us to tell us about the various aspects that has been plaguing Viatech. So, Forum, why don't you tell us about what's going on with the company, and what are the updates here?
Yeah, so let's start with the earnings actually. So the revenue growth for the company has remained pretty muted, and it's been declining since the last 2 fiscal years. So even if you see at the current quarter reporting, so it reported a 34% decline in its revenue during the first quarter this fiscal. Now coming to its receivables, the recovery cycle for the receivables remains pretty elongated for the company. So it takes around about 225 days for the company for collection from its customers. Now this is based on the numbers which it reported in financial year 2019. So the delay in receivables and the increasing bad debts is what has impacted the profitability of the company. The PAT margins have remained pretty largely unchanged for the company in the last 4 years. So the increasing pressure of its receivables has led the company to borrow more for the working capital requirements, which has in turn impacted the finance cost for the company, which has been increasing. Now even the operating cash flows for the company has turned negative due to the working capital concerns. In financial year 2019, it reported a negative operating cash flow of rupees 76 crore. Now looking at the current position for the company, it has about 600 crore worth of debt in its books and about 200 crore worth of fixed deposits. The current order book in hand for the company stands at about rupees 12,000 crore. So coming to what analysts have to say, no Nomura expects the overhang of the receivables to continue during the first half of this fiscal.
Okay.
ICICI Securities also values the company at a 40% discount to forward earnings due to the muted execution of projects and the working capital impacting its cash flows.
Okay, Forum, thanks so much for getting us those updates. So a whole host of, factors out there which are working against VATech Vabag, and of course the forum's given us a lot of numbers with respect to balance sheets, as well as the possibility of looking at low valuations. At least one broking firm seems to suggest that. This as far as VATech Vabag is concerned. But on that note, let's also talk about two other stocks which have been buzzing in trade, and as usually we have with us Sharad Dubey, who's going to take us through those. Sharad.
Hi Agam. So the first stock is Adani Transmission. The Adani group of stocks are actually in the news today itself, and all were ending on the positive side. Now coming back to Adani Transmission, the stock went up as high as almost 8% today after it received. It rose after the acquisition of an REC SPV project. Now this is the biggest intraday gain we saw in almost 7 months. The project was actually won by a competitive tariff bidding process, and also it received a letter of intent in the month of July. So this actually augurs well. Even the brokerages stated that this deal would be value accretive for the company. And up next we are having is GTPL Hathway. It came out with its numbers yesterday in the post-market hours, but the numbers were actually looking good. But the thing is, the raw material costs as well as the other expenses actually hurt the margins. Now if we go through the numbers, we see the revenues are increased by almost 95% at around 609 crores, but if we remove the EPC segment, the revenues rose by almost 47%. The margins were actually dented by almost 100 basis points, it coming in at 19.7% versus 27% on a year-on-year basis. Apart from this, there's a huge chunk of expenses coming in from P-channel costs, which rose almost 50% at 198 crores versus 132 crores. Apart from this, the business segment performance, if we see, the cable TV business grew almost at 44%, and the internet services grew by 11%. So Agam, this was the case for both the stocks, one performing really well and the other going down the negative way.
Right, Sharad, thanks for getting us those updates on those two very important stocks. Of course, GTPL Hathway, the more interesting one considering the kind of view that we've seen in just 2 days. Well, of course, once again, we are keeping an eye on big earnings, Wipro for that matter, which will react to earnings tomorrow, and we're going to expect the earnings come through in just a bit. And on that note, it's a wrap on the markets, but that's not my lineup. Stay tuned to BloombergQuint.